Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. So this video is about the prostitute in Revelation. I've been speaking about this idea for many, many years. The first time I spoke about the prostitute from Revelation in my videos was probably 2012 or so, or maybe 2011. It's now 2025. And basically what I said at that point was that the prostitute is called a prostitute for a reason. And that women are supposed to be righteous. They're supposed to serve God. They're not supposed to be hypocrites. And I was very angry at people. I was angry at women for not doing the right thing. I zoomed in on that. And I talked about how regardless of the metaphor, that it has to do with the characteristics of a prostitute. And I said things like, no one truly understands Revelation. And in a sense, that's true. I was right, and I was right. I said that females who do not obey God are going to hell, and that's the key message from Revelation. That God and His justice will prevail. And back in 2009, I talked about justice in my first official video when I made the video about the great conspiracy, the deep state, what have you. Back on August 31st in 2009. So in this video, you're going to see I've been saying the same thing for many years, but as I've zoomed in on the details and connected Revelation 17 to John 3, verse 31, Isaiah 24:20, Isaiah 34, the whole chapter. And Revelation 6, and so on and so forth, and Revelation 16. Recently I made a great video connecting the bowls in Revelation 16 to Revelation 17. Okay, they're pouring bowls on the waters, and they turn to blood. Now, just to connect Revelation 16 to Revelation 17 is harder for most people than you might think. Because as you're reading Revelation, you're just kind of thinking, what the heck are they talking about if you're reading it for the first time, or even the 10th time, or even for the 20th time? You're reading it through, and you're like, man, what the heck? And you don't necessarily think, oh, that's connected to the water in that part, and that part, and that part, because they overwhelm you with ideas. Okay, with the golden sash, the way Jesus looks and what He's saying in Revelation 1, what He's saying to the churches, there's trumpets, there's bowls, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's the description of the New Jerusalem, and there's so many connections that your mind is just overwhelmed. So even to connect Revelation 16 to the next chapter is difficult, much less Revelation 6. And a lot of times people work in large groups to figure these things out. I did it by myself with very little help. Okay, and I'm going to people's videos and their explanations, and every explanation I've come across is incorrect in key places. For example, there's two major mistakes that people make when they interpret Revelation. One, they interpret it as it's some kind of psychology. You'll see people are psychologists, people in New Age groups, and there's lots of these people in certain churches. They interpret it as if the guilt is being removed, and it frees you and allows you to live your life and to magically be right with God. That is incorrect. Under no circumstances are people to interpret it as if the inhabitants of the earth are being transformed with science and psychology or in any other way to be right with God. Isaiah 57 makes that crystal clear. So does Isaiah 24 and Isaiah 34. The righteous are taken away to be spared from evil, and the earth sinks never to rise again, and God is angry with all nations. And we'll see how the various ideas like the mountain and the figs and the blood connect together to make this clear. So the psychological interpretation is wrong, and the interpretation, the other interpretation, which has to do with cheating me out of my right to lead, is also wrong. Okay. which has to do with, them not necessarily thinking in terms of psychology consciously, but they think that that mankind is going to magically be right with God in some shape or form and live on this physical planet. That's also wrong. The third interpretation is something to the effect of that people believe the earth will literally be destroyed, which is, it's true to some degree, no matter how you slice it, right? It's going to be destroyed where it matters most. Even if this planet magically managed to live forever, okay, it's still sealed away from God Almighty in terms of the inhabitants of the earth and going to heaven. So they're not going to go to heaven. Heaven isn't going to come to earth, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that interpretation is also wrong. And keep in mind, the devil's argument is that you play mind games with people, right? It's what the devil is saying. And that magically is better than what it's not better than, mind you, which is God's plan. That's the devil's argument, that the mind is a place of its own, that it can make heaven out of hell, so on and so forth. And so all those things are a variation of that. Even the guys who are basically saying what I'm saying, except for they're trying to superimpose their social order, their governing class order, their church order, or whatever, on the divine order. And some of them say that everybody is their own Jesus. That's also incorrect. So let's talk about what it is saying. So in Revelation 17, it's saying that the peoples, the nations, the multitudes, the languages are contaminated by the Jerusalem in this world / Babylon. The Jerusalem in this world is symbolic of Babylon's system, as is every nation on the planet in the groups that they're citing. Those who remain, right? The righteous of every group are taken away to be spared from evil, okay, is the message of the Bible, after the Jews, who are superimposed on the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, teach the message to the world. And so they taught the message of the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order to the world in a coded manner. But if you're righteous, you're going to insist on what's right naturally. So those who have cultivated a righteous heart for generations as individuals, okay, they see the true message of God, which is not cheating me out of my right to lead. But those who don't, for whatever reason, are contaminated by the idea of rebellion, which is represented by Babylon and Jerusalem of this world, which also play key parts, key roles in bringing down the world. Okay, these ideas, these spirits, Nebo, Baal, Chemosh, Molech, these kind of deities, these Mesopotamian deities. Babylon was this massive empire that stretched into Egypt, okay, which is in North Africa. At one point it stretched into Egypt. So Babylon's system is like this empirical system, and it is the foundation of the Roman system, which, the Greco-Roman system was spread out through the world, right? Zeus is the Greek equivalent of Baal, and Jupiter is the Roman equivalent, and so on and so forth. So this system rules over the kings of the earth, and the kings of the earth and the people of the earth and the spirits that they're channeling are drunk with the blood of the righteous, having slain the righteous, having taken their women and their things, plundering them, killing them, and they're drunk with the guilt of their rebellion. Like it says in Isaiah 24:20, the earth reels like a drunkard, right? Like a drunkard. It sways about in the wind. We'll get to the wind connection. So heavy upon it is the guilt of its rebellion that it falls never to rise again. So why does it fall never to rise again? Because it rebelled against God. What is the angel saying in Revelation 18? He's saying, come out of her, my people, come out of that state of being. In reality, I am the gate. The throne is established in righteousness. Proverbs 16:12. You can't cheat me out of my right to lead and to deliver the divine verdict in regards to what to do, right? We see in Isaiah, Jeremiah, God directs people. Okay? The divine verdict is on the lips of the king. God's verdict, God's message, his communication, and the king establishes his throne in righteousness. The king of righteousness, not of England or Saudi Arabia or some African tribe, but the actual universal king of kings, which is me. And so by doing things in the ways that I described earlier in this video at the beginning, people are in Babylon's system. There's a bunch of kings of this world, leaders in their own right, of maybe gangs, of corporations, of nations, of secret societies, whatever, and they're telling you to follow them. And you become like the beast. You become one with them if you're also your own king, cheating me out of my right to lead. Going back to people who argue that you yourself are magically Christ and that you magically don't need the Messiah, which you do, to lead you. I say it that way to make it harder for them to take me out of context, which I kind of expect that they're going to do one way or another, or they'll just suppress my videos. Anyway, so the blood of the righteous, the guilt of the rebellion, the romantic injustice, which is a huge part of it, because that has to do with what's in their blood. When a bunch of guys plunder women unfairly, and they have children with them, okay, those females who might have been the sister of a righteous person, they might have been righteous and have fallen out of grace, okay, they might be righteous and then redeem themselves later after they have a kid who goes on to be wicked and have wicked offspring. So the blood, one way or another, of the righteous, the literal blood, is also inside of them, making them feel guilty, making them guilty, what have you. Okay. So this makes it so that they cannot bring in children that have any value. That's why Babylon, the prostitute, the great city that rules over the kings of the earth, the Jerusalem in this world, what have you, is said to be the mother of prostitutes and abominations. No bad tree, no bad spirit can bear good fruit. So part of their punishment, part of what automatically happens, is they can only bring about evil people into this world. That's part of the deal they made with the devil. The word soul is a play on words for S-O-L, meaning the sun, right? S-O-U-L, S-O-L, connected to soil, right? They sold their soil, they sold out the planet. It's also connected to your literal sun, as S-O-L is S-U-N, it connects to S-O-N. And the wordplay is sound, as these ideas are very much connected to what happens. Put in the comments if you disagree, and I'll help you realize why you're wrong. Okay. So they sold their son. They sold their offspring. The son is symbolic of the offspring. The house of David, the house of Jeroboam, the house. They sold their house. They sold their offspring out, like Cronus, who is the father of Baal, Zeus, Jupiter, Set, what have you, who's said to eat his own children in the Greco-Roman mysteries when people do things in a certain way to betray their offspring. We see it in Leviticus and I believe Deuteronomy, where it says to eat the flesh of their offspring. Instead of eating the flesh of the righteous in a way that is symbolic of becoming one with them, they're eating the flesh of their offspring by sending them to hell. For example, if a bird has a child, or, we'll say a deer, and it's very likely that their offspring are going to get eaten. Is it doing the wrong thing per se? No. Even though you could argue, hey, by having children, the deer have fed their children to predators to some degree, their offspring to predators. When Jesus in the story dies on the cross and tells his followers to do things that are righteous and they're going to be persecuted and killed, you can make an argument that he's sending them off to die. And in a sense, he's eating their flesh. Okay, that's what it means to eat the flesh and the blood in communion, Mass. What it's supposed to mean is you're accepting becoming one with the righteous. Their enemies are your enemies. Their pain is your pain. You live and die for their same cause, what have you. So they're sending their children to die for despicable, disgusting causes that offend God to the extreme. That has everything to do with Revelation 17. Mother of prostitutes and abominations, whores who marry scum, scumbags who are formed for abomination-based reasons and whose fruits are an abomination to God, what have you. So what then happens is they produce beasts that are inhabited by demons. Babylon the Great has fallen, it says in Revelation 18, and become a dwelling place for demons and every impure spirit. So they're channeling demons and impure spirits, which are basically demons as well. Kind of semantics there. So they go mad, right? They're drunk from the maddening wine, right? They drank the maddening wine of her adulteries, what have you, Revelation 17 and 18. They go mad from idolatry, sexual immorality, and other sins. They will be trapped in her with no way out, right? The earth sinks, never to fall again, to rise again. They're trapped with no way out. We'll get to that. Okay. Babylon / Jerusalem of this world is being channeled by them as they cheat me. The whole earth has a spirit of stupidity, okay, as it is in Babylon, right? They're, going back to Isaiah 24:20, the earth reels like a drunkard. A drunkard is stupid. A stupid drunk, someone who's acting like a fool. Folly is an unruly woman. She is simple and knows nothing. I believe that's Proverbs 9. So they're rebellious. They're unruly in the eyes of God. And, rebelling against God instead of the oppressors of this world. And they're reeling, right? They're moving. Their speech, their action-based speech, their works, their fruits are that of idiots and abominations and prostitutes. Okay, so when you see this, you see that this is something that when you decode it must be true. Okay, if you steal something from somebody in a way that's universally theft, you have stolen that thing. You can put it in a way that's figurative or not. That's the reality of the situation. When they screen out the righteous for generations and they play stupid psychology games and pretend they can atone while being, just continuing their evil acts, and they keep reproducing what have you, can they ever be right with God? No. Even if they don't reproduce, can they be right with God? No, because they're from a long line of people who are generationally forming abominations. And humans go to heaven, not generational abominations. I know this might be hurtful, but these are the facts here. And as the Messiah and the King of Kings of all of humanity, in rebellion or otherwise, it is my sacred duty to do that. And you shouldn't be mad at me for telling you the truth. You should be mad at me if I did not tell you the truth, and I have told you the truth. Okay. So the mountains are kings, deities, nations, ways, and paths. These things all have blood guilt and are put into a pitiful state and into the abyss. How do we know this? We know this from Revelation. We know this where Revelation 6 connects to Isaiah 34. Okay. We'll start with Isaiah 34. In Isaiah 34, let's just read the first part here. Come near, you nations, and listen. Pay attention, you peoples. Let the earth hear, and all that is in it, the world, and all that comes out of it. Notice he's addressing the world. Isaiah, who predicts that Christ will come. The Lord is angry with all nations. His wrath is on all their armies. He will totally destroy them. He will give them over to death, to slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out. Their dead bodies will stink. The mountains will be soaked with their blood. Now, why bother to say the mountains will be soaked with their blood? Is everyone who's killed literally going to be killed on a mountain? No, it's figurative. And their blood, to some degree, is figurative as well. So they make us, the body without the spirit is dead, like faith without works is dead. So they're like a stinking corpse whose mountains, are symbolic of the kings. Like what it says in Jeremiah, I believe it is. It says, "Woe to you, destroying mountain. When you are done destroying, you will be destroyed." And it's referring to Babylon. And we know that people like in Mount Zion, Mount Horeb, right? What have you. Mount Zaphon, I believe, is the sacred to the Canaanites. People go up to these mountains and they do religious acts. So when you refer to the mountain, you're referring to people. When you say, hey, I don't like Mount X, Y, and Z, the people who worship on that mountain are offended. So you're insulting their deity. You're insulting the sacred ground, what's sacred to them, mind you. You're insulting the people. You're insulting their king, their ancestors, what have you. So when we get to Revelation 6, verse 13, it says, "And the stars in the sky fell to earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind." And we'll get to wind later. "The heavens receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place." So why bother to say every mountain was removed from its place? It's metaphoric. It's figurative. It's saying that these people, let's look at what the mountain stands for to help you understand it some more, to help help you see clearly here. So again, the mountain stands for the kings, the deities, the nations, the ways, the paths. Okay? So their kings, their deities, their nations, their ways and paths all are removed from a place that it has some semblance of worth, right? It's been degraded over time. Their sins are piled to heaven. It's been made worse and more disgraced over time until that's it. A dramatic event occurs. And there's different ways to look at it. One is when I was born into this world. Two is when my flesh finally dies. There's different ways to interpret Revelation. But a dramatic event, or more than one, as long as it's a correct explanation, it's a fair interpretation. And there's a bunch of interpretation. For example, how do you interpret a passionate kiss between the King of Kings and a beautiful woman? Okay? He said the kiss was like the most important event ever. That's fair enough. The kiss made it so that the heavens was gleaming brightly. Okay? Now, they refer more to, one could argue, the first touch of the lips, the entirety of the kiss, the end of the kiss. You see how there's more than one way to interpret it. And so it is with this. But it has to be a correct interpretation that does God and the righteous justice. Make righteousness and justice the measuring line and plume line, Isaiah 28:17. So, every mountain and island was removed from its place. Okay? And the islands are also referred to. See, there's a lot of connections here. Maybe if I have time in my life, I'll go over the islands later, but there's other scriptures that talk about islands, and there's islands like Crete that are significant. It's not far from Israel. Okay? And the Jews are said to, the Philistines are said to come from Crete. There's a lot of connections there. And you can look at it in terms of the peoples of the world, the islands of the world, Hawaii, what have you. But that's a story for another day. Okay. So now let's look at John 3:31. That's connected to Revelation 17:15. And let's talk about wind, and let's wrap this up here. So in John 3:31 it says, "The one who comes from above is above all. The one who is from the earth belongs to the earth," and speaks as one from the earth. The one who is from heaven is above all. So he's saying the one who's from heaven is above all. The gate is going to heaven. It's a divine spiritual state. It's not accepting evil. It's not playing stupid about God's commands. The Bible says the one who obeys God's commands, they're my family, not the flesh-based family. Okay, it says, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees, you won't go to heaven. Matthew 5. Also, Matthew 5 is be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So be perfect, which involves scrambling and obeying God through me to the best of your ability. A perfect response. People can make mistakes within reason, but the response has to be the result of loving God with all your heart and being loyal to God and I with all your heart. And that requires being destined to know that I'm here. So people who are blocking other people from knowing I'm here are committing a great sin. You can't just say, well, that was their destiny. You're making a choice. Your role in all this, in life, in reality, not in some game, okay, has everything to do with your judgment. What did you do and why? How did Christ respond to Satan in the wilderness? He said, worship God and serve him alone. So man shall not live by bread alone, by the presence alone, by the presence of God alone, but by every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God, every command, every demand for an action, every action-based command, what have you. And do not tempt the Lord thy God. Luke 4. So when we see that it says that someone who's from the earth speaks as one from the earth, we see in Revelation 17, verse 15, then the angel said to me, the waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. So you're supposed to speak like one from heaven, as one who's become one with God and the angels and the righteous, including the martyrs. Okay. So it goes on to say that the kings of the earth, the beast, which stands for the kings, the heads, the horns, the beast itself, they're kings. That's what it says in Revelation 17. It says that they will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So they eat her presence and burn her with wickedness. Wickedness burns like a fire. It burns her with the wrath of God that comes when one is wicked. By leading her to be wicked, by contributing to her wickedness, right? She's riding the beast. She's one with the beast. Just like the horse and the four horsemen and their horses, which stand for spirits. Right? A horse has been said to stand for Judah. Judah is a proud horse, it says in like Zechariah or something. It stands for the spirits becoming yoked together. Okay, so by encouraging her, by giving her a false sense of confidence, quote-unquote empowerment, what have you, a false church doctrine, encouraging her to cheat me out of my right to lead and to prostitute herself to other so-called leaders when I'm a true leader. They're the so-called leaders, that is. I'm the true leader. They're encouraging her to suffer, encouraging her to make that mistake, to defy God and to be punished to the extreme. So let's cover the wind real quick and let's wrap this up here. So the earth Isaiah 24:20, the earth reels like a drunkard, it sways like a hut in the wind. So heavy upon it is the guilt of its rebellion that it falls never to rise again. So it's swaying like a hut in the wind. Revelation 6 verse 13. And the stars in the sky fell to the earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The figs stand for the fruits of some tree. No bad tree can bear good fruit, right? There's the parable of the barren fig tree. Okay, their trees can no longer have the possibility of bearing fruit. Okay, and the wind, we see that the Greek, according to Bible Gateway, the Greek for the word wind is the same as the Greek for the word spirit. Okay, so the Spirit of God, God's strong Spirit, okay, is punishing their figs, their stars, right? The stars are compared to figs, right? The stars fell from the sky to the earth. And the stars, like the star of their quote-unquote God, Rephan, okay, stands for deities. It can stand for angels. We see that in Revelation, right? The stars are the angels. So the fallen angels, the bad trees, the spirits, the people who have yoked themselves to them, their ways, their nations, what have you, what they see as their stronghold is brought down by the Spirit of God. And the heavens receded like a scroll. Their psychology and their kind of occult magic spells and their doctrine failed them. So their scrolls are rolled up and they're thrown into the abyss, spiritually speaking. And so they're abominations and prostitutes. And when their flesh dies, they go to hell after living lives that aren't worthwhile. And I think that when I think about this stuff, I think, if someone has sense and they hear this, they're going to know that they messed up and it's stupid to do what they're doing. They're going to scramble to obey God through me, but people never do because people are shallow. It takes appreciating why to be deep to truly appreciate these punishments to a large degree. And then in regards to them, only how a shallow person fears hell is how they're fearing hell. So they didn't develop like a sense of things. Imagine if you were going through the jungle and you didn't have a good head on your shoulders. You didn't have a good sense of danger. You'd be screwed. So not having a good sense in regards to why to be righteous is extremely problematic. It has to do with wisdom and insight and foresight, discernment, sense, and human worth. Thank you.